Welcome to the Engineering and Public Works Roadshow, coming to you from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This week we're at the Great Trails State Conference. We are celebrating the Great Trails State of North Carolina, and we're putting a focus on an area of infrastructure which is really critical for community. It's that outdoor recreational infrastructure that really brings out the best in our towns and cities, gives people the ability to connect outside, to enjoy the outdoors, and really have that recreational opportunity. And we're talking about a number of projects this week and that have really transformed the state and really emphasized North Carolina's place as one of the best states in the country when it comes to outdoor recreation and activities. And right now we are talking in specific about a park in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm joined by Christy Stout with TPD Incorporated, and we're talking about the Cragnolin Park Greenway, which is a really interesting project because it my understanding was there was a junkyard that was there beforehand. It was kind of industrial and it's been completely transformed. So, Christy, thanks for joining us and tell us a little bit more about the park.
Yeah, it's a really exciting project. I do a lot of work in traffic and transportation and dealing with vehicles, and so it's really nice to get these opportunities to work on something that actually is really good for the environment. So this particular park had been a brownfield, had been reclaimed over years to the thanks of Riverlink, which is an organization that was founded by Cragnolin. And her goal was to clean up the French Broad River, which had been just as decimated by industry, such as this one. And so as we're doing the project we found burn pits that have mercury in them. We found remaining hazardous waste in addition to all the cleanup that had been done. And so it's just great to do something that work with an agency that's really working hard to improve their community, to improve the environment, and also not just provide recreation, but transportation options. So this area serves communities that have been underserved historically. It is part of the Spine Greenway network for the city of Asheville. So it really not only is a great recreation location and connection to the river, eventually there will be a boat launch and all of these things, but it's just really a cool project. Just a small project, but mighty project.
Well, that's one of the funny things about, not really funny, but really interesting, quite honestly, about the projects that we've been talking about this week is that you might have a project that is a mile long or what have you. It might be a really small project in scope, but once it's complete, it actually unlocks this greater accessibility to the larger Greenway network, or breaks down those barriers that were there for communities that weren't able to access these things. What does it mean to you as an engineer to be able to be involved in a project that does break down these barriers?
Yeah, it's huge. I think that, like I said, when I started my career, I realized, helping vehicles move isn't the only goal of what we do. And when I was younger, I wanted to, before I decided to go into engineering, I thought I wanted to be an environmental engineer. And so mine reclamation, things of that nature, and found out that civil was more where I wanted to go, but it was really full circle to come back into helping with bicycle and pedestrian planning, things that help the community from an environmental perspective, and help people enjoy the outdoors. I mean, it's a quality of life, it's mental health, it's so many things.
Oh, absolutely, especially we found that out during COVID. I mean, the amount of people who rediscovered or realized that they had trails and they could get outdoors and actually, instead of being cooped up inside, it kind of changed the way we think about, outdoor recreation. One of the challenges, of course, whenever you're dealing with a brownfield site, I mean, the fact that you have to deal with a lot of unknowns. I mean, how challenging was it to do the remediation on the mercury, on the other industrial chemicals that you found on site?
Yeah, I think it was challenging for the client because nonprofits, similar to a lot of municipalities, they go into projects like this and they have a set budget. Or they need to know their budget so they can go get funding, right? And so with brownfields, there are a lot of unknowns. And you don't know when the contractor gets out there and starts digging if they're going to find something. And
exactly.
Open up a
you don't know.
And we had to look into things like, do you cap it? Do you, there's ways to treat it on site so that it won't spread in the environment, and then just put asphalt and dirt on top, or do you haul it to an offsite location, which has its implications as well. So there were a lot of unknowns and a lot of back and forth calls, like, how do we help you figure out the cost of this, and how do you plan for those contingencies? So
yeah,
absolutely. It was challenging.
And then, really, one of the things we do at the Roadshow, and we touched about on this a little bit, but we really like to focus on that next generation of engineer, right? Somebody who's out there saying, I like science, I like math, I like, in this case, environmental. In your case, what would you say to somebody out there who's considering something in this field on why it's such a valuable career path to kind of follow as far as self-fulfilling and the like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I think in addition to that, it's not just people in general, but we're trying to really move different types of minds into this field.
Yeah.
Because with diversity, we grow as a profession. When I started, I was probably one of the only female engineers on my teams ever, and they were all like my father's age.
Yeah.
And so we're having a hard time getting this young generation and including tons of diversity. And I think maybe because people don't know it's a career, and maybe they don't know exactly what it means. And so when you encouraging them to look at things that help the environment, that help people move, that help communities thrive, that affect every single person in a community. When we're dealing with the roadways and traffic and sidewalks and greenways, it touches everyone that moves in the community. So I think maybe for younger folks to realize that they can find something that gives back. Yeah. They want some meaning. And sometimes you hear civil engineering and you're like, math and science, which it is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways to give back, and it's dealing with people and it's dealing with communities. So
that's really.
I hope we can encourage that generation.
It's something that we're looking at on the Workforce Challenge. It's trying to broaden the tent and get more people involved. I mean, demographically, since your time starting out of school, have you noticed has there been a shift in demographics in the industry?
100%.
Yeah.
We now have our office in Philadelphia is almost all women engineers.
Really?
It went from what I described. I started with this firm when I was just out of college in 1998, so 26 years, and to go from that to just there's women everywhere in the engineering field.
So
but
that's great.
Still, with the racial diversity and the difference of cultural backgrounds, that diversity is really important as well. And I think that's where we're kind of lacking, and we're shifting, but it's tough.
It's something that we're really we are focused in on. It's not just a question of gender, but then it's also geographic. It's also background, and it's noticing that we're hearing from firms that is increasingly, especially with municipal projects like this, is that in firms who are looking for work, generally it's more favorable to see a team that represents the community that the project's going to serve, and have that background actually reflected within the project team.
That's huge because when you show up at a community and you say, here's what we're looking to do in your neighborhood, and no one looks like them, nobody comes from a background like them, you come in suits with your plan, and people sometimes are a little nervous, so they don't feel heard, or they want to know they're reflected in what's going on and that their ideas are understood. So that's super important. Yeah, I mean, that goes to the other side of the equation in doing this work is the stakeholder engagement and actually working with community groups to achieve the goals that they're looking for, and being that trusted advisor to come in and say, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And those soft skills for people out there who are like, I'm good at math, but I actually want to do something more, people-oriented. Engineering is actually a really good profession for that. I spent most of my week in a public meeting helping people that were upset about a project to understand, hey, we want to listen to you. We want to hear what your concerns are. We want to shift our project to better meet your needs. And I spend much of my time dealing with the public. And even just community stakeholders that are concerned about the impacts. So absolutely. Downtowns, they worry about their parking impacts, or just impacts to their property in particular, right, when you do a project. So it's huge. Outstanding. Well, Christy, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it, talking about the project and the industry in general, and look forward to the rest of the conference, and hopefully this is one of many areas where you can work on to build out the greenways and improve the communities. Fingers crossed. And again, this has been the Engineering and Public Works Roadshow, a joint effort from the American Council of Engineering Companies, the American Public Works Association, and the American Society of Civil Engineers, coming to you from the Great Trail State Conference in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We'll see you next time.